All right, guys, thanks for coming by. My name is Brian. I'm with Starlite Pulp, and this is the inaugural Starlite Pulpcast, if you will, and our maiden voyage, as it were. And so tonight we've got two very brave gentlemen, Dan and Joey, here with me from Out of the Podcast, which is a pretty awesome show that you guys should check out as soon as you have the opportunity. And so how you guys doing tonight?
Ahoy, we're doing good. Pulpitos, pulparinis.
That's it. Yeah. Long live Pulp.
There you go. I'll take mine with Pulp.
There you go. So talk to me real quick about the genesis of Out of the Podcast. Whose idea was it? And then once you had the idea, how long did it take to kind of come to fruition?
I would say it's tough to say whose idea was it, but me and Dan, we come from the music world, him from the performing end and me from the record label end. And that's how our paths crossed. And we very quickly realized we each shared a love of film noir, which is not quite rare, but at least, you know, as far as meeting in real life people, you're like, hey, this is good stuff. And I always enjoyed our conversations. And Dan is extremely knowledgeable and has amazing taste and made great suggestions to me, an expert. So it eventually just came to like, hey, we should do a podcast. The pandemic had happened. So, of course, people are struggling to do creative outlets from afar. And that kind of came up. And then I would say it was like, we thought of it in the summer of 2020. And then, you know, by the end of the year, we finally pulled the trigger. It was time to actually do the darn thing. And here we are, 80 bazillion episodes later.
Yeah. 80 I think episodes later.
Yeah. I was thinking like it was very mutual when we did it. Like, then again, I wasn't really like, oh, I want to do a podcast. Like I never like set out, like I never in my wildest dreams thought I would ever do a podcast in my life. So it went from like, I never even really thought about it to like, it just naturally progressed. Like, hey, you want to do this? Like, you know, I'm like you said, I'm a musician. I'm in bands. Everything kind of just stopped. So I had all this extra free time. So I have other hobbies. Obviously, film's one of them. So like, we're like, let's just do it and see what happens. And here we are.
Truly, yeah. I mean, we're just like, oh, Zoom is a thing. I guess that's how we could do it. Because I had considered doing a podcast, but you know, as people do, you know, then it's like, oh, time to actually do it. How do you do it? And I really expected to be like, we need to be in a studio about these. You know, I'm a perfectionist, but no, it's really been super simple to do and to just pull off above good enough. And weirdly, it's just kind of, you just keep doing it. And then all of a sudden you're like, I'm a podcaster.
Right. So Dan, what instrument?
So I play bass in most bands, but I also do play guitar. I play some keys, a little bit of drums, and sing. So I do like a little bit of everything, but bass is like my main thing.
Awesome. And Joey, you were on the engineering side?
I actually do more of the like releasing of the actual product. So I run a cassette tape label. You know, hey, we like pulp and stuff here. We like, you know, weird stuff. I like cassette tapes.
Right.
And, you know, I always wanted to do a record label. I kind of did throughout my 20s, but then it's very expensive. I remember someone said, you're better off just digging a hole in your backyard and throwing in thousands of dollars. And that's the truest thing ever said. But then tapes was it's such an affordable way to get art out there and really good music. And it's been a blast. And I get to meet such swell fellows like Dan.
Oh.
Yeah. And he put out a tape for my one band, Cabanaware. And that was like at the genesis of our kind of meeting. Like he knew Brian, who's the singer and guitarist in that band. And through Brian, I met Joey, and that's how we, you know, started talking, becoming friends, just going to shows and stuff like that. And he would come to see us play and kind of just.
I saw the first Cabanaware show, actually.
Oh, did you?
Nice.
Yeah, we didn't even know each other at that point, but I just knew Brian, and then, you know, time, you know, things evolved, and here we are.
It was inevitable that we would.
Yeah. But then Dan also has a project that he does everything on called The Only Ghosts in Town, and we've released 3 tapes Two tapes.
And
two tapes.
Two tapes. And then
Two
By
tapes.
Surprise, my other band, By Surprise, that's an older band of mine. He's releasing a tape for them. I've been in a lot of bands. So, so he's been releasing
and they're
stuff,
all great. They're all worth release. Isn't that crazy? Usually you have a friend, you're like, you have one good band. The rest, I'm going to have to be like, calm down. But yeah, it's good stuff.
Okay, so I'm remembering here. So we got By Surprise. That's a good name. Okay. The Only Ghost in Town is a very good name.
Hey, look at that.
And Cabanaware is a great fucking name. That's a great fucking name. Right?
Trifecta, right?
3 for 3. Way to go.
That's a great band name. Okay.
Well, thank you.
Awesome.
Oh, my label's called Sludge People if we're promoting here.
Sludge People?
Yeah. How's that for a name? Does that get a thumbs up? All right.
No, that's perfect. No, they all work. Yeah, that's excellent.
We know how to name stuff, but you could always say that about us.
Absolutely.
And that was a fun thing to think of, like what to call a podcast. That's a very hard thing to think of. And I do remember just me being over at Dan's talking, probably giving him tapes that I had just put out. And then we're like, what are we going to call this thing? And
right.
That was something where you just kind of spitball. And I mean, Out of the Past is my all-time favorite movie.
Right.
Dan is quite fond of it as well. And so, that just sort of happened. And here we are.
We kind of made this up.
No, I mean, I absolutely hear you. First off, Out of the Past is a great fucking movie. But on top of that, we have Starlite Pulpcast, and we were literally called Starlite Pulp, and we're like, why don't we just put cast?
Yeah, there you go.
Put it together. Yeah.
You gotta love when it's that easy.
All right, so talk to me about you said you guys met and you had a lot of conversations with regards to Noir early on. Why Noir? Like you could have, there's so many genres. You could have chosen westerns. You could have chosen romantic comedies. I'm sure that was your second choice. But
we easily could drop some rom-coms. Yeah, no problem.
There we go. But what about Noir?
I mean, it was very clear that we were both film buffs, and just being like, oh, did you see this movie? And then it naturally kind of comes to like, well, my favorite genre is film noir. And I remember Dan specifically had championed Detour, which was actually the first episode that we did, which is a movie that I'm very, very fond of as well. So it was just like instantly like, oh, you like that? And then Blast of Silence had come up, and just a lot of deeper cuts as far as film noir goes that we both had an affinity for. So it was pretty clear like, oh, something's going on here.
Yeah, definitely remember. Yeah, Detour being one, because it's definitely, I think, like, among people that like film noir, if you know with that movie. So like you kind of know, like once you hear like, oh, you love that movie too, like it was kind of like you have that kindred spirit where you're like, okay, like I get it. At least for me it was, and I was like, wow, that's I feel like there's more there. And we kind of, like Joey said, we kind of dove into some other films that we liked, and then
and music. I mean, I feel like it was just everything we kind of talked about was like, semi-obscure, like, we were a couple of dogs sniffing each other's asses, basically. and we liked what was coming from each end.
Right. And so that's why you guys started out with Detour. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. It was a good inaugural one. I didn't want to quite jump into Out of the Past just because I wanted us to get a little used to being a podcast first.
Criterion just put out the new print, which looks great. So we wanted to
Beautiful.
we kind of just,
we're still promoting that print.
Yeah, I'll promote that print forever.
It's a hell of a print. I mean, they did magic with that thing. But yeah, it really felt right to do Detour, and we're still, I don't know how the episode is. It's been forever, but it's still a good movie, so we recommend that.
And plus, it's super short, so we knew that if anything else, we could get into it. It would be quick. We know it very well because we both had seen it so many times. So it felt like, not like training wheels, but it felt easier to kind of start with something that you felt really comfortable with.
We had a good amount of like heavy hitters front loaded in the beginning, other than a couple. I mean, there was some in the beginning too that were like you'd always heard of that we hadn't seen, like The Postman Always Rings Twice.
Sure.
And which is famous on our show for being one of our lesser enjoyed movies. But
gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I mean, Detour's like, I want to say it's an hour 15 minutes or hour 20. It's really short.
Yeah.
Yes.
If even that, I mean, it is a breeze.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So you're 82 episodes in at this point. What are some takeaways that you guys have with regards to podcasting, each other, and noir in general? Just anything you want to tackle on that.
I mean, podcasting right off the bat, I would just say, it's easier than you'd think. Weirdly enough. But it's not. I mean, I think for us, we've been lucky. I don't know if we would still be doing it, or at least me personally, if we weren't able to have built like an audience. It was very clear right off the bat that this wasn't going to be something that friends were going to listen to, because as we said, it was like kind of hard enough to find each other.
Right.
But we had something that people wanted to hear, and we tackle a genre that has a fan base, and they were able to find us, luckily. And I think that's been a real reward, because you see a lot of people like start podcasts and it's just like a couple of pals yucking it up, and God bless them, but I'm not going to listen to that. So it definitely helps to have something, like the Pulp angle that you're doing here on your hit podcast. Right off the bat, we can already tell the numbers are through the roof. Yeah. We'll give you that of the podcast bump if we can, but you're coming in hot right off the bat. But it definitely it helped to have that angle, which we sort of got lucky with. But also just go for it and do your thing. It really isn't that complicated, and I think as long as you have something to say and are someone worth hanging out with in real life, I guess. I don't know.
And I think for me, like, the more that I thought about it as we were doing it is, I've always had this love of just old movies in general, like growing up. And I feel like there are obviously a lot of people out there that feel the same way, but there's also a lot of people that I feel like maybe aren't aware of a lot of these movies, or aren't aware of, or not necessarily like seeking it out. So in my mind's eye, like something that was kind of, I guess, like an offshoot that I didn't even think about was, the way that we kind of approach these films is like, we're doing a lot of the ones that are like well known, but I like to bring, because I like a lot of like the weird, grittier, like obscure ones. I like to throw a lot of those in there, and I know Joey's the same way, to get more of an audience to be like, hey, like kind of showing you like there's so much out there, and there's so much interesting little wrinkles, and there's some commonality, and there's some really bizarre stuff out there, and it's such a fascinating like subset of films, and especially in the what we consider like the classic era. So I think highlighting that and bringing it in a level where we're talking about the plot, but kind of trying to make it a little bit relevant in a way, like not that it's irrelevant, but you know what I mean, like it's more of like getting people interested in it, and kind of relating it in a way where it's like making people aware of it nowadays, now that it's 2022, and it's like I feel like everything moves so fast, and
I mean
sometimes it slows it down and be like, hey, like there's these really cool movies that were made.
They still have something to say, like they're still I definitely think with film noir, a lot of it is presented through that older lens, and you got me and Dan, like the TikTok generation, us. We're coming in young, like the 19-year-olds that we are. No, but I mean, I think we definitely have a bit more of a contemporary lens on it, and just how we came into film noir. I mean, you kind of get dropped into it, with like Double Indemnity, which is another of the greatest of all times, and then, maybe you end up there and you want to find out more, and we can at least be like, here's some movies that if you like that, you're gonna like this too, and there's some commonality here, and also some crazy stuff happens. Sometimes there's atomic suitcases and other gems.
Right. One of the things that I really enjoy that actually we've talked about on email a little bit, Joey, but is the kind of the genre benders, right? Like something like Bad Day at Black Rock, or Desert Fury, in my eyes at least, which they're noir, but they're also part westerns and and that kind of thing, and those are a lot of fun for me. Just like they are in literature, same thing. I as much as I love noir, and I do, I love the shadows, I love the fedoras, I love the top coats and the strange amount of fog all around. I
loves this fog. Yes,
I'm a big fan of the fog. So.
#Fogcast.
Podcast.
But but I also enjoy things that are a little bit more difficult to kind of figure out right away.
Yeah, shadows don't necessarily need to be, followed by a private detective. I mean, I would say, especially even early on, we were very hungry for like film noir and western, like westerns that had a noir sense. We did Blood on the Moon with Robert Mitchum, which was fantastic, and Day of the Outlaw, and The Naked Spur, which was actually a bit misleading, but we definitely are hungry for that kind of mashup, or like, hey, this kind of has that feeling, even though it's something completely different. So no, that's always fun when that happens.
Yeah, and everything from like, you even got more like melodrama with Leave Her to Heaven. And there's also we haven't done it yet, but there's a film noir called it has a couple different names, but one of the names is Reign of Terror. And it's actually a film noir, but it's like a historical piece about like French Revolution or like pre-French Revolution. And it is one of the coolest looking movies I've ever seen. Like, and I feel like it's not super well known, but like I remember watching it, I was just blown away at the look of it. And it was so film noir, but yet it was like that historical film that you would like normally see. And you're like, wait, this is a weird thing. Like, does this work? Like, I don't know how I feel about this, but it was just very enjoyable for that. And like, yeah, like you said, like stuff that really kind of almost makes you question it, or you're like, this is really cool. This is not a wrinkle that I would have thought of as film noir, but it works, and it is. You could consider it to be. And like you said, I mean, even just like obviously the Western one's a big one, and we've done a bunch of them. But I love that. I love that there's different things that have been done that kind of make you say, "Wow, this is really cool and interesting and different." And I like that. It's not just
a lot
like
of times too, like it's like the director too, like they had done a lot of film noir, and then all of a sudden they're doing like sci-fi films, but they still, they know what they know, so it can't help but being a little film noir,
exactly.
Like the cinematographer may have come from that. So I mean, there's little things like that when it happens, it's just fantastic, and I'm excited for this historical noir now.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's good. Okay, so what are some, looking back over the full body of work here thus far? What are some surprises that you did not anticipate before you started with this with film?
With film, like films, or like with film?
with film noir, with regards to a specific film or the genre in general.
Okay. I mean, I would just say, like, as far as like surprises, a lot of it is just, seeing movies that you hadn't seen before and then being blown away. Like early on, Dan had brought in Dark Passage, which, is a pretty obvious one, but I just hadn't myself gone down too much bogey personally, which was kind of, one good thing about the show is you sort of force yourself to watch some film noir that you always hadn't. And Dan brought that on, and it was just fantastic. That thing is just a hoot.
And that's interesting because I'm personally, as much of a noir fan as I am, I'm not a big bogey fan either. So
I mean, I would say that's where I started, but I've warmed up to him as the show has gone on. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm head over heels. Like he's no Mitchum, of course, but he definitely he brought something to the table that is quite valuable, and I can see that now. And Dark Passage is a perfect example of that.
Okay, excellent.
And here I am on the other side, loving Bogey, just kind of sitting in the corner. Like, I'm sorry that I love him. But I think for me, I brought in a movie that I caught on Noir Alley a few years ago called Suspense, and I absolutely loved it. It's noir on ice, and it has a lot to do with like being an ice skater, Bolita, who is a real life ice skater, and she was paired up with Barry Sullivan. And I always really liked that movie, but I hadn't really seen a lot of other stuff with Barry Sullivan, and we've gone on to do a few more, and I've seen a couple other ones that we haven't done yet, like one we just did in the summer called The Gangster, which I had watched a little bit before we had it on the show, and I told Joe, I was like, we need to have this on the show, especially it's a good, it's at the beach, like it's a perfect summertime. We want summer noir, and it's perfect for that. So, and I've really warmed up to him as like a character actor, like, and he's kind of in this weird, like, he's a lead actor, but he's just such a unique personality that like I can't even describe, but he has just like, there's a certain quality of him, and that really kind of made me become more of a fan. I've kind of gone down a little bit of a rabbit hole with him, like checking out some of his other movies and realizing kind of the breadth of his filmography of that films he's been in. So that was one kind of like thing that kind of spawned off of the doing the podcast that I
we've kind of find like either directors or actors we kind of latch on to as we go on through the podcast. Like Cornell Wilde, I would say, is someone we really grew quite accustomed to, and yeah,
love him.
Yeah, he's a good time.
Okay, excellent. I love that. So here you go. What out of the 82 movies, which one was ostensibly and obviously in your mind the worst? The one where you were sitting there going, okay, I'm gonna have to put lipstick on a pig for this episode because I'm struggling here. What would that be for you?
I mean, I had an answer for the longest time, but I would now say, I mean, honestly, maybe the last movie we did, the Blue Dahlia, episode 82, that was a bit of a slog to go through, but for the academic purposes, we kind of knew we had to do it. I don't know, Dan, what about you?
That's a great question. I think for the long, kind of similarly to what Joey said, like I definitely, for that one, I was probably the most not wanting to do that episode, like going into it, like knowing like the week of, like I was anticipating like I really don't want to do this. I've seen it before. I don't want to watch it again.
Yeah, because there's been movies we've watched that were like not great, but we had never seen them, and then you're finding it out. But it's a different thing to know you're going into something you already don't enjoy. I think that's been one of the like only cases where that has happened so far.
But I will say, caveat to that, I ended up liking it a smidge more than I remembered. So it actually was a little bit better. Okay. Still don't love it, but I actually like watching again. Like I was able to find at least some more redeeming qualities on the second viewing. So
which happens. I mean, I would say we had scheduled an episode, because we try to think of like seasonal things, to keep it a little fun. So we did a winter noir. We did On Dangerous Ground, which was a movie we both had watched and didn't necessarily enjoy when we did, but it was like, hey, there's plenty of snow in that. That's going to feel right. And I think we had we really enjoyed it the second time around and really got something. So,
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's as much as it is like we're giving a review, sometimes you really do need to go back and just be like, oh, maybe there is some, now that I know what to expect and expectations are out the window, we can see what's truly here. So sometimes it pays off and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, I don't think there's been an outright like stinker. I mean, like Postman Always During Choice, I get why people like it, but I didn't enjoy it like as much.
It's a bit of a slog, yeah.
Yeah, just because like I think that one had gotten so much attention and like you have this expectation going in.
Yeah, I mean, it was our second episode. We really felt like we needed to.
Right.
And then finally watching it and it's like, oh, Lana Turner's great, but
she is great. Yeah.
You can only coast on that for so long.
Right. Like there's the scene, like the entrance scene, like you're waiting for it and you're like, okay, that's cool.
Right.
And then you're left with John Garfield and it's fine.
They electrocute one cat and then you're like, okay, maybe I'm sticking around. But then after that, no good.
And John, the funny part about that movie though, is that it was a huge book, James M. Cain, and John Garfield is generally pretty good.
Right.
In films. So, and
yet, I agree with that. I don't know how much Dan feels about that. I mean, I feel like that's his bogey, right?
I love him in The Breaking Point. We haven't done that yet, but he's great in The Breaking Point. I think it's certain movies he lends well to certain movies and vice versa. Like I think it depends on the type of movie. I think he didn't suit that very well in Postman. Like I feel like they probably could have gotten somebody else that was more suited to that. That was probably my critique of it. I don't think he's a bad actor. I just think maybe not the right role for him.
Jack Nicholson, baby, that's who needs to do it.
Right, and I was about to say, have you guys seen the Nicholson and
No,
I haven't seen it. No,
you guys haven't seen it?
Jessica Lange, right? Is Jessica
that it? Lange, yeah.
Yeah.
I do love Jessica Lange, but I have not seen it.
I was curious, and when we were first doing that episode, I'm like, I'm going to watch it right afterwards and do a comparison. We're a podcast, and I'm a professional.
But we're serious about this.
Yeah, absolutely. How could we not be? But after seeing the original, I was not too enthused to go and then watch the new one. But I did see it was on HBO Max the other day. It was just added, so I might go for it, at least in the background. I heard it's very horny, so.
Oh. Well, I mean,
I think it is.
Yeah.
I think we spent too much time thinking about the 1973 made-for-TV Double Indemnity. I think that's probably what it was. Which, if you haven't seen, highly recommend.
It's fantastic. Yeah,
I have not seen that. No, I have not.
It was a bonus feature on the Blu-ray. There's now a Criterion 4K, which it did not carry over to, but go seek it out. We did a bonus episode. And, yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay.
It's with Richard Crenna and I forget who is the female lead. I can't remember now, but
she's in that Cronenberg movie, The Brood, right? Isn't that it?
I think you're right.
Isn't that what it's called?
I'm gonna do my actual like what I do on the show where I
look it up. Yeah,
I look it up. Yeah, Samantha Eggar and Lee Jake Hobbs in it, which is funny because he's like a stalwart of classic era film noir, and he happens to be in it, but it's just like it's much later in his career. But yeah,
doing Edward G. Robinson, right?
Yeah, yes, and it's written. It was written for the teleplay was Steven Bochco, so you can kind of get a sense of like what the vibe is, and it's very 70s. It
like hits all the same beats, but it's also like done in an hour. So I mean, they're really cruising along. But yeah, they go to the grocery store, which is what everybody wants. So
right, yeah, exactly.
The set design's incredible. Like it's so 70s and over the top, and like that's enjoyable about it. But yeah, there's just no sizzle or spark. It's just. There's like zero chemistry between
these remakes. Never work out, it seems.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, one of the things that I always find interesting is, and I'm going to go back, but I know that the process back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 40s, 50s was so different with regards to actors and their choice of movies. But there are so many actors that we have that seem to really gravitate and do well in certain genres. So, obviously, say Clint Eastwood in westerns, or but there are so many nowadays who, a guy like Nick Nolte, for example, okay, he acts in every noir film that he can find, like, and he's always pretty good in them.
Sure, he's got the voice.
Yeah, I mean, I just saw. Not that I necessarily say this is noir, but I just saw 48 Hours recently after not seeing it in 20 years at least.
Yeah,
that's a good film.
That's Walter Hill, baby. I mean, you can trust Walter Hill.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of riveted. I was like, oh, I'll just have it on in the background, and then all of a sudden, but my point is, there are these actors that are so good in a certain genre, and I can only imagine, not being an actor, that that's because they're drawn to it. It's because they really have an interest in it, and I think that kind of comes across.
I hope so. I hope they like this stuff.
Well, but see, again, back in the 40s and 50s, they were just kind of under contract to kind of do whatever they were told to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I'd say one thing we've come across though is like sometimes an actor would become, they end up with a production company though, and they'll option like a book. Like they do get involved sometimes. Like it isn't always a contractual thing, but mostly it seems to be.
Yeah. So having said that, favorite after 82 episodes, favorite individual, and it can be an actress or an individual role, favorite femme fatale.
That's a good one. I mean, I would say I'm drawn to like a Ida Lupino or like a Gloria Graham. I think are just fantastic and elevate anything that they're in. It's hard for me not just to do out of the past references as well, though, and just
right.
Jane Greer, Robert Mitchum, best that ever did it. But
Jane Greer's pretty good.
Yeah, she does good work.
Yeah, that's tough. The first one that popped in my head, and not necessarily to go back to it, but Anne Savage in Detour. I mean, she is just like that performance, and it's such a low budget film. I feel like it's Poverty Row. Like I feel like the stakes are probably pretty low, in general. But like her performance is so just electric, and it's just like there's so much vitriol, and it works. Like it helps to make that movie, in my opinion. So like. That's like the first one I think as far as like, wow, like what a performance.
Yeah.
I know you guys aren't big, Bogey fans, but I love Bogey Bacall. So like, I've always had a thing for Bacall since I started watching a lot of these movies. So I would say, her in like The Big Sleep or, something like that. Like I always kind of gravitate towards, but
I'd also say like probably Robert Ryan is our most represented actor on the show, and we're pretty blown away by him, specifically like him in the setup. He just completely devastates you and does such a fantastic job, and is a little different from roles that he usually would do. So that one's a great one.
Versatile and like one of the best actors, I think.
Definitely.
Overall, I think, I mean, between that and Crossfire, we did Odds Against Tomorrow, which is a little bit later, but equally as amazing, job that he does in that film. I would agree with that.
He's in Black Rock too, yeah?
Yes. Oh, very beautifully in Bad Day at Black Rock. I mean, and there's a perfect cast, and
excellent villain in that movie. He's excellent.
I actually saw another Sturges movie the other day, The Satan Bug. You ever see that? Also with Anne Francis?
No.
That one was a good time. It was actually on yesterday on TCM, so recommend that.
Oh, wow.
But we went down an Anne Francis rabbit hole after watching that movie, and we did Honey West. You ever see that?
No, I haven't seen that either.
That was a television series from the 60s. It was the first female-led detective show. And it was
very cool.
It's amazing.
Very good stuff. Yeah,
it's
highly recommend that.
Honey West?
Yes. Honey West. Yeah, there's a complete DVD box set if you can't find it streaming. I think it's like $20, something like that.
You can find a deal.
Yeah, you can find it pretty cheap. And I think it's only like one season, so it's only like 24 episodes, 21 episodes. But yeah, it's very just like 60s, kind of mod a little bit, like almost like the Saint, but like she's really cool and has like great quips, and like it's great. It's really good.
Yeah,
very cool. So if you hadn't have chosen noir, what genre would you have gone after?
That's a tough one. I mean, I'd say something we're learning is I think we both have like a love and yearning for Westerns that, I think we would like to get out in some way in the future. But it also could just be like here's a cool movie podcast or something like that. But I mean that's a good question for Dan specifically, because I feel like he really dives into some specific weird genres that I would just be along for the ride and be like, yeah, great.
My wheels are churning right now. I would say, I mean, there's a couple. I feel like there's a couple out there, but I know like a Canon film. If we did Canon film,
a lot of the good stuff's been taken because stuff like that would be a lot of fun. Yeah,
right, that would be great. I'm a big fan of that, especially growing up. I mean, I'm just a big art house guy, so like, foreign films and stuff like that, like, from everything from Criterion, Kino, like follow all of those. So like something relative to that, or, it's hard to kind of define. So like either like, and I feel like there's a lot out there, but like cult, sci-fi, horror kind of stuff. Like I love that kind of stuff. So maybe finding something specific, like trying to narrow like a specific window, like maybe like mid-century sci-fi, like kind of getting to like pulp and stuff like that. Like I love like
it would have to be really specific because there's just so many that are taken even by friends of ours, but we're down to think about it. I like newspaper and news movies. That's like my second favorite genre.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
like a broadcast news. I would love to do a podcast on broadcast news.
I was gonna say just a whole one devoted to broadcast news for you.
Yeah, we could do like a mini series on broadcast news. That'd be fun.
Well, I think it'd be cool to do like a pulp one. Like I know because we're in it, but like I watched like the War of the Worlds, the 50s one the other night, like something like that, like The Blob, like I said, like that very 50s sci-fi.
I did the Day the Earth Stood Still the other day.
Nice.
Right.
Funny enough, my I don't want to stop you, Dan. Pick up right after this, but my grandpa actually did the special effects on the original The Thing.
Oh wow,
that's incredible.
Yeah, that's pretty cool,
awesome.
Right?
Yeah,
that's very. I mean, that would be one to do.
Yeah,
that'd be one to do.
Absolutely, I love that.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be a cool little like niche, like specific to like that era and like how it relates to like Cold War anxieties and what's going on at the time. It's like that. Yeah, that would be really interesting to kind of dive into because I feel like there's enough there to talk about. And you could kind of get into some weeds there,
and some tropes and some themes,
right, and really kind of maybe narrow it so you can kind of focus on some specifics and really get some interesting kind of takes or perspectives on.
These are all free ideas. We're not going to do
Yeah,
this
we're throwing
podcast,
them out into the ether.
We'll be happy to guest star on them. But
it'd be interesting too to look at sci-fi. You've done it a couple times with Noir. It'd be interesting to look at sci-fi movies that are made and then remade, because something like The Thing, right? The original one was regarded as good, but then the John Carpenter film is oftentimes regarded as a classic,
right?
Very much so,
by a lot of sci-fi folks. Which is rare, right? When you remake a film, generally you do it worse. So
right.
So that's
even just like something that was just remakes that were done better would be an interesting podcast to listen to.
Absolutely.
Or a John Carpenter podcast. I would listen to that as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Whereas War of the Worlds that you mentioned, you had the original version and then you had the Tom Cruise version.
Yeah.
Which I haven't seen.
I was having a conversation with my roommates the other day about this, or not the other day, like a month ago. But is that the only movie that Tom Cruise is a father in? I'm pretty sure it is.
Let me
and Eyes Wide Shut. We came up with Eyes Wide Shut too, which is very much a family film. So
very much, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be just a podcast topic right there. Just kind of diving into that.
Yeah. It's one to ponder.
I can't think of any.
Right? It's a head scratcher.
Yeah.
He just doesn't want to be seen that way, I guess.
He's the lone wolf. Yeah.
No cub.
I mean, he has Goose in Top Gun. But
No, I mean, yeah.
That's true.
Other than that,
and he's got Goose's kid in the second one. I don't know if you guys have seen that one, but
I haven't seen it yet. Yeah.
Okay.
I did waste my time and see that. Yeah. Okay. Unfortunately.
He hates him through most of the movie, but still, he's in it.
He's like a father figure, so maybe that's like a technicality.
Yeah.
Isn't it always?
Yeah. if we really want to
Dad.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so as you guys move forward with out of the podcast, and I don't even know how much you've thought about this. You might just take it on a week-to-week basis, but as you move forward, there is obviously a finite amount of noir, but there is a ton of, say, international noir, French noir, Japanese noir. I mean, there's a ton out there.
Yes.
And some of it's excellent, of course.
Very much so.
Do you guys have any interest in branching out to that, or are you just moving forward with are you sticking with the 1965 premise for a while?
Yeah, with having a 1965 cutoff, I think that is pretty much set in stone. I mean, if something feels right and it's like 66, 67, we'll go for it.
Right.
We did High and Low once before, which is Kurosawa, and we do have a French noir coming up in a month or so. So, I mean, we're definitely open to it. It's definitely an area I'm not as familiar with, so it definitely takes more research. But I mean, I'm definitely open to it, and we love foreign films. It's not necessarily that's the problem.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't actively sought them out as much, but yeah, I mean, specifically like the UK, there was a big push in like the later back end, like more 50s-ish and so on. There was much more of a little bit of a boom with film noir, and I feel like it was a response to what was going on in America and France, obviously too. There's also one which I haven't mentioned to Joey yet, so I can sort of spoil it now.
Lucy over here.
Yeah, let's hear
but it. And Joey, I feel like he's probably heard this a million times, that I'm a big East German history buff. So like that's like my.
This was the genre as I was expecting you to be like, I would do a podcast on that.
Right.
I was waiting for that.
Which people have told me that I should just do, because that's just like what I research all the time. Like I love it. But I watch East German films all the time, and there's an East German film noir actually that I recently discovered that was just put up, called the Second Track. It came out in 1962, and it was amazing. It was great. It's on Canopy because they have a lot of the DEFA films, which is the East German film studio. Through the UMass Amherst Library, they kind of curate all of that, and they actually host a lot of the movies for free on Canopy streaming site, so you can get access to them. And that was recently added, I think, pretty recently. And it was great. And I feel like that would be a really kind of obscure one that we kind of bring into the fold and talk about, because it'd be interesting to see like if other people kind of get turned on to that and be like, oh, this is interesting. Like I never would have thought that this would be a thing. But yeah, I would love to do something like that.
Okay. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, so talk to me real quick about, like we mentioned before, you haven't done a whole lot of the films post 65. A few, but not many. So think back to the last, say, God, we're old. It's 2022.
Yeah.
Good Lord. I was going
When
to say
did that
30 years.
happen?
I was going to say 30 years. Wow. Think back 40 years.
Sure.
Let's go 40 years. And so we're looking at 1982 or 3, somewhere in there. Above, what are some noir films that really kind of stick out to you in the last the last 40 years? But
Yeah.
that are,
I mean,
that are seen oftentimes is a little bit more modern, you know.
Absolutely, the neo-noirs, if you will. We do stop at 65, but we have in November, we do a neo-noir-vember, which is 4 weeks of bonus episodes. So the classic film heads don't get too annoyed, but we love neo-noir, and we very much, we have a good knowledge of it, and sometimes I think I know that better than I know traditional film noir, but
I was just gonna say you probably more like that's like the kind of balance, because like I like a lot of neo noir too, but like Joey knows way more about that than I do, so I always kind of sometimes I'll look to him for that type of stuff for sure.
That's been a joy for sure to turn the tables on this smart man I have to deal with, but
I just like old movies.
But yeah, so that month it's really tough because we each come up with 2 movies to bring to that month, and you really have to leave a lot behind.
Oh sure. Yeah.
There's a lot of later period Mitchums that are just fantastic, like Friends of Eddie Coyle, the Yakuza, a lot of ones that we'd really love to get to, but then it's just like, you also want to champion movies that are underseen. So we did Thief, Michael Mann's Thief, which is
right.
That was my first thought. Yeah,
and that was mutual. I was happy to let Dan have that because I would be happy to have Thief, and R.I.P. James Caan, of course. Mona Lisa with Bob Hoskins, which was in the 80s as well.
Right.
Blood Simple
was 80s as well.
84.
Yeah. 84.
That's Coen Brothers, yeah.
Yep.
Fantastic film. Yep. Mm-hmm. Coming in hot. And then, there's a lot good ones. I mean,
Heat.
If we're going into the 90s, on TCM last night was One False Move, which is fantastic underseen neo-noir. Bill Paxton, one of the greatest actors we ever had. Yeah. Billy Bob Thornton, who co-wrote the film, and then directed by the guy that did Devil in a Blue Dress, which is also another great one.
Devil in a Blue Dress is, in my eyes, I cannot figure out why more people don't know about that film, and it's
incredible.
One of those, even when you look back at Denzel's career, people don't even mention it. It's like it never happened, and Denzel is like pitch perfect in that movie, and Don Cheadle steals every scene he's in.
Phenomenal, yeah.
He's fantastic as Mouse, and nobody talks about that film. It's the weirdest thing.
Not nearly enough. Thankfully, Criterion just put out a beautiful edition of it, so hopefully that's going to help out with it. But yeah, that's definitely a very underrated one. I myself was way too late on that one, but I'm happy to be there now. And then, as far as newer ones, I thought Mud with Matthew McConaughey was really fantastic. That one blew me away when that came out. Hell or High Water was a good one.
That was good.
We did
Killing Them Softly.
I would say it's like a little bit of neo-noir, but it's a little bit throwback, it's a little bit weird, but we did a short episode for a movie that I kind of discovered by accident called Cast a Deadly Spell. It's an HBO film from 91, I believe.
Okay.
And
you want to talk hybrids, this is the one.
All right.
Yeah, it's like film noir, it's set in the 40s, but the whole premise is like everyone does magic. And there's this whole it's like there's almost this like Lovecraftian weird creatures,
Yep.
And then
there's like demons and stuff,
right? But then you've got the kind of detective out there trying to solve this this whole mystery thing that's going on, and it's very shadowy. It's and he doesn't use magic, so he just has to rely on his wits and his his wherewithal to just kind of solve this and kind of make things work.
Right.
So that's kind of the premise. So it's a very weird, interesting kind of mesh, but it works. I was fascinated by it.
It's really good. It's an early Julianne Moore is in it. Clancy Brown, starring Fred Ward, also R.I.P.
Oh, Fred Ward, yeah.
He's in a starring role, which is just really great to see. And it was an HBO movie, so it's on HBO Max. If anyone's looking for a freebie,
David Warner also is in it.
Also R.I.P. Yeah. And then the sequel, which is not out there, but was directed by Paul Schrader, so that's fascinating.
And Dennis Hopper takes over the starring role, which is even more wild. Just the whole. You can go down a whole rabbit hole with those two movies of like, wow, in the early '90s, specifically with HBO, there was a lot going on there.
Oh, there was
truly.
Yeah. You had the Fallen Angels series was around there too on Showtime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember that name. I didn't watch that, but I remember
that was pretty solid. It was pretty solid.
Nice.
But speaking of Dennis Hopper, Red Rock West, Nicolas Cage, Dennis Hopper, Laura Flynn Boyle.
Wow, no, I never even heard of this.
It is excellent.
Definitely check that out.
What's
the lineup?
But there are those people, there are those people that either absolutely love or, hate Nick Cage. And,
sure.
And so Nick Cage in this is Nick Cage, but he's good Nick Cage. And Dennis Hopper is great. Dennis Hopper plays a hitman. And
that's interesting energy to see play against each other. I'd be fascinated.
Oh, absolutely.
What was it called again?
Red Rock West.
Red Rock West. All right. Yeah.
It is really, really outstanding. It is worth the time.
Yeah, I definitely want to check it. Well, speaking of also Dennis Hopper is the Hotspot, which is also just like a very good like neo-noir erotic thriller mashup, absolutely. which is great. And Kino just put out not that long ago a great version of that. And I mean, it's got Jennifer Connelly in it. It's
if you want to go neo noir erotic too, that makes me think of Brian De Palma, who's we're big fans of. Dressed to Kill, Blowout, where we love Philadelphia movies. So I mean, definitely we can talk about neo noir.
Mulholland Falls.
Yeah.
Nick Nolte.
Yeah.
Michael Madsen. Michael Madsen's been in a bunch too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love Michael Madsen. He used to have a website where he would talk shit on movies he was in, and it was a lot of fun. I don't know if that's still up.
Okay, so I'm going to be honest with you here. I have a book of poetry by Michael Madsen.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Is he a good poet?
So he's a multi-talented gentleman.
What's your favorite poem from it? Can you recite one for us?
Oh gosh, no. But I wish I had it here. I don't have it here with me. But if I did, it's called "Burning in Paradise." I think I'm like
beautiful.
"Burning in Paradise," and it has a picture of a Zippo on it, which for Michael Madsen makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Next time we're back, we want to see that book facing now.
No, absolutely. Yeah, you got it. I will have it here with me. Awesome. Yeah. So what about real quick on how are you guys with sci-fi? Not do you like it, knowledge-wise?
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a pretty good knowledge in general of film. There's just certain things we're better at, but yeah, I feel ready to step up to the plate for the most part for some sci-fi.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll finish this up here in just a sec, but hang out for a couple minutes and we'll talk real quick and we'll get you guys back for where we'll talk like a specific film or a specific trilogy, something like that.
That'd be great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, awesome. So everybody else, thank you so much for checking in tonight. These are the Out of the Podcast guys. They are awesome. They know their stuff, obviously, as you just heard, and hope you guys check them out. Many of you probably already do, and so appreciate it there. But thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. Next podcast, we are going to have Nevada Mcpherson. She is an author who has a neo-noir book called Poser out right now, as well as a teacher, and she teaches a Film Noir 101 class. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then a couple weeks after that, we have a musician, the swing and jazz singer Johnny Boyd. So we're going to have him on talking Pulp as well. So thank you so much for being with us. Joey and Dan, thank you so much.
Thank you. Those sound like good episodes. Sound like if they're anywhere as good as this episode, you got yourself a hit here, sir.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. And hang out for a minute. Everybody else, I will see you in 2 weeks. Thank you so much. Starlite Pulpcast. Checking out.
In this topsy-turvy world, where a boy still loves a girl. They sit beside me on the train, whisper lovey-dovey names. I guess some things never change.